The race for the Senate presidency really heated up last week, and then it ended peacefully over the weekend when State Senator Ed Gaunch, a Republican from Kanawha County, who called Senator Mitch Carmichael, the majority leader, and said to him that you got the votes and you're the guy, and withdrew from the campaign. And both joined me on Talkline this morning. Senator Mitch Carmichael, who is in line now to be the Senate president. Mitch, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning. How are you, Hoppy?
I'm well, thank you. And Senator Ed Gaunch. Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning, Hoppy. Good morning, Mitch.
Good morning, Ed.
All right, so Mitch, let me start with you. First of all, congratulations. Looks like you're going to be the Senate president, so congratulations to you. What are your thoughts about this honor and responsibility?
Well, and I think those are two words that are appropriate. It is a great honor, and I can't thank my good friend and colleague Ed Gaunch enough. He is a gentleman in every respect, and just a very honorable man, and look forward to working with him in the capacity as Senate President, and just excited about the opportunity. And the responsibility is such that we need to all focus on putting our people back to work. It has to be about jobs, the economy, great school systems, and infrastructure programs. So we need to focus like a laser beam, this state, on achieving those goals and being world-class and great at those activities.
Senator Gaunch,
absolutely world-class.
Senator Gaunch, do your priorities and those who support you line up with Senator Carmichael's?
Yeah, I'd say without any hesitation that they certainly do.
Senator, Senator Gaunch, let's go back to you and why you decided initially to mount a challenge to Mitch.
Okay. Well, first, Hoppy, I think it would be good for me just to not to correct, but to just give you another opinion. I noticed your Metro News article over the weekend, and I'd just like to clarify, I think,
sure,
one small issue, and that was it seemed to indicate that there was maybe considerable displeasure with President Cole and the Majority Leader Mitch Carmichael. And the truth is, to a person in our Senate, there's a total admiration, especially for Bill Cole being the architect of this change that is sweeping over, I believe, our state. And so I just don't want to leave the opinion there that perhaps there was considerable displeasure with President Cole.
Okay.
Because it's not true. And certainly there's no even close to universal dislike for Mitch Carmichael. I look forward to working with both of them here in this interim session, and then with Mitch as Senate President when we start in January and February. But to answer your question, I think it's more institutional, the reason that I decided to pursue the job. And I guess you'd have to probably ask those folks who were supporting me to get the correct answer. But what I think is that there's a perception among the senators, and I would argue the citizens of our state as a whole, that perhaps some people's voices aren't being heard. So from an institutional standpoint, all 34 of us in the Senate are friendly and we get along great. But each one of those 34 represents approximately the same number of constituents. And the only difference in any of us is some of us are in leadership, some of us aren't. And the perception is that leadership gets to set the agenda, which somebody has to do. But we just want to make sure that every one of those citizens, from Boone County to Berkeley County and Putnam to Pleasance, get the same representation, and that ideas that bubble up and ideas that are important to those folks get the attention they deserve.
Well, let's talk about that with Senator Carmichael, because I did get that vibe in talking to various senators that there was concern that if certain senators had certain things they wanted to do or bring up, that perhaps the leadership was not as responsive to it as the senators thought it should have been. So, Senator Carmichael, A, is that a valid concern and or criticism? And B, you can't accommodate everybody in leadership. Somebody has to make a call. We're going to do this, not going to do this. So how do you address this going forward?
Well, I take every criticism and constructive criticism and Absolutely, it's valid. So anything that we have done that is not accommodating those who aren't absolutely right in the middle of the leadership role, we want to hear every voice. We want to make sure that, and to the extent that I'll be the president, I want to accommodate each one of those and make sure that those voices are heard. They represent, as Ed said, the same number of people, and those voices need to be heard. And we will do everything we can to open that up to make sure that all those voices are heard.
But you can't do everything, Mitch.
No, but what I'm saying is we will make every effort to hear those concerns and take every criticism as valid and worthy. And also, you're right. People, it's a political process. It is a democracy in which those ideas filter to the top, and we try to get everything done for the people of West Virginia in a short 60-day session. So we need to prioritize those things. Everyone, can't have everything. But having said that, every member has a right to bring those issues before us, and we want to be as open and as accommodative and as proactive as we can be to ensure that all voices are heard.
Okay, Senator Mitch Carmichael is with us. He is going to be the next Senate President, and Senator Ed Gaunch of Kanawha County, who did mount a challenge to Senator Carmichael, but conceded over the weekend. So, Senator Gaunch, again, and I'm not trying to create something that isn't there, but I do know there are some divisions within the Senate, at least different ideas about things. So, somebody's got to make a call. So, how does Mitch fulfill that obligation of saying he wants to hear all voices, but in the end of the day, and you've been around a while, not necessarily in politics, but somebody's got to say, we're going to do this and not do this.
Of course, yeah, it's important to have good leaders, and I'm confident that Mitch will be one of those good leaders. But you just have to make sure. My approach would be, if you have an idea that turns into a bill, and I would say let's let that senator run that through the process. If he or she can get the votes in committee, if he or she can get it to the floor, then let's give it a fair hearing. If not, then I understand, there's going to be a filtering process. And I would say this, Hoppy, this process was, this whole challenge was never personal. For me, it was never personal.
I know that. I believe that.
Yeah,
I believe that.
It was only about the process, and it provided some competition. And truly, I think it points out the strength of our West Virginia State Senate, not any weakness. And that we're going to come out of this better. I think the ideas that have been shared will make us all stronger, and I have no doubt that Mitch, as Senate President, will reach out and make a double effort to make sure those voices get heard.
I followed this thing pretty closely. I never got a sense, Senator Gaunch, that it was personal, that you, and obviously you guys are pretty good friends. I just never got a sense it was about that. And frankly, you made a pretty amicable gesture by seeing what the vote was and saying, okay, rather than, because you could go on longer and say, okay, I want to try to get this person over on my side and that person, and the thing could have spilled over.
Yeah, that's right.
And it could have been. Okay, but what about the Religious Freedom Restoration Act? This was legislation that conservative members of the legislature really pushed last year. It passed the House. There was a divisive debate in the Senate. And Mitch, you made a very impassioned speech against it in the Senate. It failed. What will be the fate of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, A, if it comes up again, and B, if it comes to the Senate? Do you want to run that, Mitch or Ed, or do you say, well, that's been done, we're not going there again because the top 3 or 4 issues are really economic?
Well, that's my view. I think the top issues, and as you talk about the filtering process, the people of West Virginia need jobs, Hoppy. We have to get our people back to work, and to the extent that we introduce legislation, I hope the first criteria we ask is how many jobs does this create? How many people does this put back to work? That should be the criteria that we utilize to filter our legislation. Now, certainly there are social issues that some members have concerns about, but I hope that in a short 60-day session, in an environment in West Virginia in which we have fewer of our people working percentage-wise than in any other state in the nation, that our sole focus, or at least our primary focus, should be putting people back to work, creating jobs, fixing our infrastructure and our roads and transportation system and improving our schools.
Senator Gaunch, you clearly represented some of the more conservative members in the Senate in this campaign. Does that satisfy you? Are you okay with RFRA not being a priority, or maybe not even coming up at all on the floor? Maybe somebody will introduce it and go to committee. Are you okay with that?
Well, Hobby, what I would say is, and I may differ only slightly with Mitch, I would say not only in West Virginia but in the United States today, there's really only one group left where bigotry towards that group is acceptable, and in some cases more than acceptable, it's promoted, and that is to evangelical Christians. They get marginalized, they get demonized as being far-right kooks, and the truth is that's one of those groups that certainly deserves representation as well as any other group. But having said that, my good friend Mike Hall, the senator from Putnam, last year when we were debating this issue, and everybody heard my speech probably last year, I spoke in favor of this legislation. And after that, I spent a good bit of time with Senator Hall, and he said, you know, our state constitution is stronger than almost any other state in this regard. And we ought to give that a chance to work before we pass another bill. And it struck home with me a little bit. And as passionate, as much as I care about evangelicals, I started looking into that. And he's right. Our Constitution is very strong.
So the protections are already there. You believe you now believe the protections.
They agree with me.
You now believe the protections are already there.
I'm saying it's quite possible they're already there.
Okay. Real quick, Senator Carmichael, you also, since you'll be leaving the position of majority leader, you've chosen another majority leader?
Yes, Senator Ryan Ferns from Ohio County. Will be my choice.
And why Ferns? Why'd you pick Ferns?
Well, Ryan's demonstrated a great ability to articulate the issues, to summarize them in such a way that they resonate with the public and with his fellow senators. He's very proactive in terms of reaching out to other members to accommodate their needs, their positions on different issues, and the bills that they want to run and utilize. So I think he will be a great choice for and serve that role very well.
And Senator Craig Blair, you've chosen as the Republican Berkeley County as the majority whip, who's the person responsible for lining up the votes, correct?
Yes, and Craig is he's a great friend, as all of us are in the Senate, but he is a fantastic communicator with other members and making sure he goes over and beyond and takes every possible avenue to reach out to senators, to keep them informed, he just does a great job of reaching out to others.
All right, Senator Mitch Carmichael, who will be the next, barring something unforeseen, will be the next Senate President, and Senator Ed Gaunch. Thank you both for coming on today. I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, Hoppy, and thank you, Ed.